ESPN Television Network. This Week in Pro Football is brought to you by Hager Slacks. They just fit better naturally. And by American Motors and your local American Motors dealer.
Hi, I'm Pat Summerall.
I'm Tom Brookshire.
This week in the first half of our show, we'll see how tight defensive play carried the Giants and the Steelers to their second consecutive wins.
We'll also see how St. Louis took over undisputed first place in the NFC East.
We'll see how Denver remained on top in the AFC West.
And we'll see how Miami and Baltimore remain tied 3 full games ahead of the New York Jets in the AFC East.
We'll see all of these games and more right after this message.
In Buffalo's War Memorial Stadium, the revitalized Miami Dolphins continued their steady rise to power under the rule of their new coach, Don Shula. The Dolphins scored first. Quarterback Bob Greasy combined a brisk passing attack with the bull-like charges of number 39, Larry Zonka, to give Miami an early lead. In the second quarter, the Dolphin defense, spearheaded by tackle Manny Fernandez, number 75, stopped the Bills' offense and set up 2 field goals by Garo Yepremian. It seemed that Miami was on its way to an easy win, but Butch Bird intercepted a pass by Greasy and instilled a new confidence in the Bills. Dennis Shaw, Buffalo's rookie quarterback from San Diego State, passed to his 250-pound running back Wayne Patrick, who ran to the Miami 24. Shaw fired to Marlon Briscoe for a touchdown, and Miami only led by 6 points at the half. In the third period, Bob Greasy turned to his workhorse fullback Larry Zonka, and the Miami Mauler personally accounted for 44 yards and another touchdown. Dennis Shaw answered Zonka's bludgeoning tactics with a crisp, precise passing game that ripped through the Dolphin defense for steady gains. Shaw completed 24 of 32 for 338 yards and 2 touchdowns. Marlon Briscoe, number 86, was on the receiving end of both scores. Shaw's second touchdown pass put Buffalo in winning range, but Dick Anderson snuffed out any chances for a Buffalo victory when he intercepted a pass by Shaw in the final period. Gracie and Warfield team for a touchdown, and your premium added 2 more field goals to ensure a Dolphin victory and a share of first place in the AFC East.
Sharing first place with the Dolphins are the Baltimore Colts. In a wild replay of the 1968 Super Bowl game, the fired-up Colts charged to an early lead when Jerry Logan intercepted Joe Namath's first pass of the day and returned it for a touchdown. The Colt offense joined in on the enthusiastic revenge. Unitas connected with Hinton for a 32-yard gain. 2 plays later, Unitas flipped the ball to Tom Mitchell, and the Colts had scored again. Shocked and embarrassed by Baltimore's 2 quick scores, the Jets finally offered some resistance. W.K. Hicks picked off a pass from Unitas and put the Jets in scoring position. The last time these teams met, it was the Jet defense that made the big plays. Today, the defense of the Baltimore Colts conquered the Jets and made the vital moves that ensured the Colts a victory. Mike Curtis, number 32, and later in the second quarter, Jerry Logan, number 20, both intercepted passes that squelched New York drives. Namath crumbled under the inspired Baltimore rush, and throughout the first quarter was unable to mount a successful drive. The offensive fire that had burned so fiercely in that Super Bowl game of 1968 was smothered in the dust of New York's Shea Stadium. New York's elusive pass receivers were contained by Baltimore's tenacious gang-tackling zone defense. In the first half, the Jets' only score came on a safety and a field goal. At halftime, they trailed 20-5. The third quarter began as a replay of the first. This time, it was Bob Grant who intercepted Namath and returned it for a touchdown. The Jet defense set the stage for New York's first touchdown when Hicks came up with his second interception and returned it to the Colts 17. Namath capitalized on the interception and passed to Eddie Bell for a score, but Baltimore still led 26-12. Bell's touchdown bolstered New York's waning confidence, and the next time the Jets got possession, Namath drove them downfield with short passes into the creases of the Colts' zone. Namath's strategy paid off with a touchdown by Emerson Boozer. In spite of the fact that Namath completed 34 of his 62 passes, the Colts held on to win 29-22 and moved into a first-place tie with the Dolphins.
Well, Pat, it's story time, and I can recall a bump and run tactics used years ago, and before Howard Cosell destroys the entire theory of it, I'm going to try to explain what it really means. It didn't start in the late 50s or in the 60s in the American Football League. It actually started, I think, back in the late 40s. The Cleveland Browns were fairly adroit at this maneuver, and the Eagles used to be able to bump and run. And what this means is that the defensive back plays the offensive receiver as if he's a blocker. Until a ball is thrown, you have to consider him that way. So when the talented receiver comes downfield, a perhaps less talented defensive back cuts down the speed and the different things by putting the wood to this fellow. And it might have been called by different words or different terms in those days, but bumping or chugging the receiver or bump and run has been around a long time. And I'm thinking about people like Jim David and Dick Lynch with the Giants, and myself in particular. I don't believe we'd have been around pro football very long if bump and run wasn't something that we live with every day.
That's so true. You're trying to destroy the timing is really as much as anything else.
Of the quarterback and the receiver. What's next, Pat?
Well, Tom, last week there were two defensive struggles which only had one touchdown apiece. Let's look at those games right now.
In Houston, two teams in search of a consistent quarterback met with far-reaching results for both clubs. The Oilers and the Steelers are both capable of being serious title contenders when their quarterbacking straightens out. The Steelers are depending upon a rookie, Terry Bradshaw, number 12, to deliver them from their shroud of defeat. But mistakes sometimes nullify talent. But aside from his talent, Terry is strong and resilient. And even though the Oilers unloaded on him a few times, he unloaded to Donnie Shanklin, number 25, with a 67-yard touchdown pass, the first of young Bradshaw's career. The second quarter play put the Steelers ahead 7-3. To solve their woes, the Oilers obtained 10-year veteran Charlie Johnson from the Cardinals. Johnson moved the team with more success than had any of his recent predecessors. But the Oilers and Charlie Johnson suffered a cruel blow when, following a freakish interception, he was inadvertently clipped and fell on his shoulder, breaking the collarbone. Ironically, there were but 6 seconds left in the half at the time of his injury, and the Oilers never recovered. Johnson's replacement, Jerry Rome, number 17, made a considerable contribution. but he made crucial errors that the Steelers turned to their advantage as Pittsburgh hung on to win 7-3. The future looks bright for Bradshaw and the Steelers, but for Charlie Johnson and the Oilers, his 6 to 8 week absence could make the sound of any music hollow indeed.
As the hub of old New England, Boston maintained Sunday traditions all its own. Sunlit, ivy-covered stadiums, mounted patrolmen overlooking a shady common, and more recently, a losing football team. But those Bostonians who came to Harvard Stadium last Sunday hoped that the time was near for the Patriots to once again capture a championship. The Patriots have the nucleus of a fine team, but the recent acquisition of this man, Joe Kapp, had Boston a skidder. For here was the man who had led the Vikings to a championship only last year, with a fiery charisma the Patriots surely needed. His first start was against Alex Webster and his New York Giants, a team that is also attempting to reverse recent losing habits. Before the windswept game, Kapp told his new teammates to put a little joy into their work. But only a man of irrepressible machismo could possibly have taken any pleasure from the ensuing afternoon. Kapp's crude style is unmistakably his own, but he is only one man, and the Giants made his transition from Zorba the Viking to Zorba the Patriot a long and painful one. For the Giants' Fran Tarkenton, number 10, it was an equally long afternoon, but he managed to complete a 28-yard touchdown pass to Clifton McNeil, number 18. The Giants also got 3 field goals from Pete Gogolak for their total of 16 points. But Kapp was still charging at the end, giving everything he had and taking everything in kind. He was the team's leading rusher and completed 10 of 22 passes. But like before, the Patriots didn't win. And for at least one Boston fan, that fact was all too familiar. We'll be back with more exciting action on This Week in Pro Football right after this brief message.
This season, the balance in the NFL has begun to show, with no team able to open up a big lead in their division. But St. Louis moved past Dallas in the NFC's Eastern Division, and the Broncos proved they're no fluke by staying atop of the Western Division of the AFC.
Just as snow capped the mountains of Colorado, the Denver Broncos capped their division of the NFL as they met the Atlanta Falcons. On Atlanta's first play from scrimmage, Bob Berry's pass for number 86, Jim Mitchell, was intercepted by Charlie Greer, setting up a quick 7-0 Denver lead on Fran Lynch's touchdown smash. Believing that first-place teams can accomplish anything, the Broncos pulled off a successful surprise onside kick, but a penalty nullified the play. And Atlanta, seemingly incensed by Denver's audacity, drove right down the field and tied the game on a pass from Berry to number 84, Mike Donahoe. From that point on, Denver showed why they are number one as they completely controlled the rest of the game. Clem Turner blasted into the end zone for a lead they never relinquished. The Bronco defense kicked up its heels too as Paul Martha's interception set up a 51-yard field goal by Bob Howfield, and a fumble recovery set up the final Denver points on a pass from Pete Lisk to Jim Whalen in a 24-10 Broncos success.
Meanwhile, in Philadelphia, it was the Cardinals against the Eagles, who were trying to avoid their 5th straight loss. And in the first quarter, the Philadelphians looked like a winner as Tom Woodishik's 57-yard bolt, combined with a Mark Mosley field goal, made it 10-zip. But the Cardinal defense, led by number 8 Larry Wilson, was not for the birds. Wilson's interception hurt the Eagles just as much as 2 fumbles earlier in the game had. All 3 mistakes led to touchdowns by the Cardinals' superhero, MacArthur Lane, number 36. His 125 yards rushing led to a St. Louis rally that saw them put 28 points on the board in the second quarter. MacArthur Lane was everywhere, but mostly he was in the Eagle end zone. Cardinal quarterback Jim Hart threw only 1 touchdown pass, and it was a 26-yarder to, you guessed it, MacArthur Lane. And if MacArthur Lane left the Eagles' defense shell-shocked with his 4 touchdowns, that was only the half of it, because the Cardinal defense dismantled the Eagle offense quarterback by quarterback. Norm Steed went first, and he was replaced by rookie Rick Arrington, number 11. But Arrington and his runners found that for them there was no open lane to the end zone. The Cardinals' 35-20 win proved that they're tough birds deserving of first place in the NFC East. And if the Eagles plan to win any games this year, they better get started soon because time's running out.
We'll be right back to This Week in Pro Football following station identification. This is the HSN Television Network. In the second half of our show, we'll see how John Hadel and Lynn Dawson came off the bench to lead their teams to victory.
We'll also see how Detroit and Minnesota remain tied for first in the NFC Central Division.
We'll see how the 49ers slipped out of first and how the Rams took over undisputed first place in the NFC West.
And in our feature, we'll see what it was like last Saturday night when the President of the United States visited Green Bay for Bart Starr Day. I think you were up there, Pat.
Indeed, I was. We'll see that feature, and we'll have more exciting action on This Week in Pro Football right after this brief message.
Last weekend, the people of Wisconsin honored their favorite son, Bart Starr. They came by the thousands to cherish again the glory years of the Green Bay Packers. Starr's former roommate, Henry Jordan, acted as master of ceremonies.
Now we come to introducing the offensive players that flubbed along in 62 with Bart. And then, of course, Fat Fuzz Thurston. Fat Fuzzy. Stand up, Fuzzy. Once in my life, you can't take the mic away from me. And, of course, the author, Jerry Kramer. Then Ian's, and still an eligible bachelor, Max McGee. And Paul Horning is supposed to be here, but nobody knows where he is. Oh, Max knows. Max probably sent him off to make the pickings better. And of course, that Louisiana boy, Jim Taylor. You sure do have beautiful hair, Jimmy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
If you think I was scared before, one thing about the president, though, he's a Ram fan.
As some of you may have heard, we're in the midst of another political campaign in this country. But if there is one thing that is non-political, it's being for Bart Starr tonight. But I think the best way that I can present Bart Starr to his friends is to say very simply that the 60s will be described as the decade in which football became the #1 sport in America, in which the Packers were the #1 team, and Bart Starr was proudly the #1 Packer. Bart Starr.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bart Starr had been honored as few men have ever been honored. Now, on Bart Starr Day in Green Bay, all he had to do was defeat the team many call the best in the game, the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams' strength is founded on the kind of defensive pressure few teams have ever equaled. The Rams' front four made Starr feel that pressure, just the way they make every opposing quarterback feel it. Starr has suffered numerous painful injuries in the past few years, and the Rams added a few more last Sunday. But this was Bart Starr Day, and Bart Starr again showed why he became worthy of such honors, as he fought off adversity and went on to battle the rugged Rams to the final gun. Starr faked to Donnie Anderson and threw for a touchdown to tight end John Hilton, number 86. Starr pitched out to Donnie Anderson, who leaped and hurdled his way 50 yards to set up another Packer touchdown. And Starr hit number 23, Travis Williams, who motored 55 yards to another Green Bay touchdown. Against one of football's toughest defenses, Bart Starr completed 16 of 29 passes for more than 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both Green Bay and Bart Starr reacted as one might expect. The Rams also contributed some memorable performances. Besides the ever-ferocious defense, there was the return of number 38, running back Larry Smith. There was one of the year's most unusual performances by number 10, Carl Sweetan. And, of course, there was number 18, Roman Gabriel, who preferred a more conventional style of attack. Gabriel threw 1 touchdown to number 84, Jack Snow, and then seemed to spend the rest of the afternoon trying to show he is as good a fullback as he is a quarterback. Despite all that preceded it, the decisive blow came with only 40 seconds to play. As Bart Starr drove his team toward the winning points, number 24, Clancy Williams, stepped in and flashed 65 yards to the touchdown that ruined a beautiful ending for Bart Starr Day and left the Rams alone at the top in the NFC West.
Bill Kilmer opposed his former teammates as the Saints battled the San Francisco 49ers, who were tied with the Rams and had the NFL's leading passer, John Brody. San Francisco's specialty teams gave the 49ers excellent field position in the first half, as number 24, Jim Thomas, sped 55 yards with a kickoff. But the 49ers squandered this opportunity, and after Bruce Taylor went 51 yards with a punt to set up a field goal, the 49ers had only 3 points to show for their efforts. Then a mistake by the 49ers specialty team, as Steve Spurrier was tackled by Doug Wyatt, number 23, before he could punt. This set up Tom Dempsey's second field goal and a 6-3 New Orleans lead at halftime. In the second half, the 49ers showed the spark they had the previous week in the great win over Los Angeles, as John Brody speared Gene Washington for a 46-yard hookup and a 10-6 lead. They added to that when a Rosie Taylor interception of an Ed Hargett pass set up a 48-yard field goal by Bruce Gossett. The Saints came right back, though, as Hugh Hollis, number 18, intercepted a John Brody pass. And Billy Kilmer hit Dan Abramowitz with a tying touchdown. But this is a new year in San Francisco, and the 49ers prove that by recapturing the lead immediately. First, number 17, John Eisenbarger, romped 49 yards with a screen pass. And then Washington caught his second touchdown pass with a diving effort in the end zone. San Francisco 20, New Orleans 13. With less than 2 minutes to go, Saints fans who had traveled to San Francisco expressed their desires and were rewarded when ex-49er Kilmer combined with ex-49er Dave Parks for a 20-20 tie to knock their ex-teammates out of first place in the NFC's West.
You know, Tom, I can remember when we first started to play that the general public impression of a football player was a guy who did well to remember his name, and certainly about all he could do was remember the number of the hole where the ball or the play was supposed to go. But I was up in Green Bay for those festivities over the weekend honoring Bart Starr, where President Nixon came and paid his tribute as well. And at the testimonial on Saturday night, President Nixon spoke, Governor Knowles of Wisconsin spoke, Bart Starr made his typically correct speech, and some of his other teammates paid tribute to him as well. And sitting there listening, and listening to those few people who spoke, Starr's teammates, the former Packers and present Packers, and Bart, as you would expect to be so good, I couldn't help but be impressed by the fact that they sounded almost as good as people who are supposed to be professional speakers. I guess this is the first time in history that any athlete has ever been introduced by the President of the United States.
It couldn't happen to a better guy than Bart Starr either.
Indeed it couldn't. What's next, Tom?
Well, Pat, we're going to take a look at two of the AFC's older quarterbacks who came off the bench to lead their teams to victory. Let's look at those games right now.
The Chicago Bears and San Diego Chargers game was a defensive stalemate. Without Gale Sayers, the Bears' running game was anemic. But number 51, Dick Butkus, evened the odds as he pursued, pinpointed, then poleaxed Charger setbacks all afternoon. Both quarterbacks repeatedly threw into sure collisions. The difference was that Jack Concannon did not have sticky-fingered Lance Allworth as a receiver, and John Hadel did. The first score resulted from a play-action fake by Concannon and a perfect touchdown strike to Dick Gordon at the edge of the end zone. Gordon's touchdown was the Bears' only score as the combination of Hadel to number 27, Gary Garrison, proved too much for Chicago. San Diego scored one touchdown on a short dive by Russ Smith, then waited contentedly until the Bears made a mistake. Good fortune struck number 81, Jeff Staggs, right in his hands when Ron Smith made one too many moves and fumbled on one neat bounce to him. Hadel then hit Garrison for an easy 7 points when Phil Clark gambled for an interception and lost as the Chargers notched their first victory of the year, 20-7.
In Cincinnati, the healthiest arm on the field belonged to the baton twirler. With Greg Cook out for the year and Lynn Dawson ailing, both offenses lacked luster. But Bengals head coach, master strategist Paul Brown, had some surprises for the Chiefs' innovative Hank Stram. It was an understatement to say the Bengals were nervous, but whenever they suffered a bad break, they took it out on Kansas City. The Bengals secondary glad-handed any Chief receiver that came their way. And the young Cincinnati rush line often caused Lynn Dawson to retreat into a pro quarterback's fetal position. The Bengals gained an early 9-0 lead when Essex Johnson followed number 73 Pat Matson to a touchdown that sent the old mentor reeling for an answer. The answer came from the Chiefs' head-buckling defense that stamped its rude message on every Bengal runner and receiver. Follow number 63 middle linebacker Willie Lanier, and you follow the ferocity that finally ground down the Bengal offensive machine. While Kansas City's defense found their answer, Len Dawson sought his from divine guidance. The Chiefs' offense was ignited by brash second-year running back Ed Podolak, number 14, who Hank Stram says will be another Tom Matte. Inspired by Podolak, the Chiefs unveiled their complete repertoire of illusion. Wendell Fluid Drive Hayes scored on a short burst, and Dawson fired a perfect pass to tight end Fred Arbanis, who scored his first touchdown since 1967. With their 27-19 victory over Cincinnati, the Chiefs remained one game behind Denver in the AFC's Western Division.
Every division race is tight in this season of upsets, but the most basic confrontation is developing in football's most basic division. With awesome displays of strength, the brutes of the Central Division, Minnesota and Detroit, moved one step closer to their November 1st collision.
Coach Joe Schmidt brought his Lions to Cleveland and immediately began worrying about their health. After 3 robust wins, the Lions had fallen ill against Washington, and now they would have to recover in the hostile environment of Cleveland's Municipal Stadium. The Lions began the game as if they were ready to rest in peace. Number 16, Bill Nelson, has made a career out of killing his opponents with their own mistakes. Gary Collins, number 86, has made a career out of beating defensive backs to the post position. Cleveland had a quick advantage, and the next time they touched the ball, their yardage man was turned loose. Number 44, Leroy Kelly, blasted over the groping Lion defense, and Cleveland could sense the kill. Nelson called a screen pass to finish the Lions off for good. However, the screen was not designed to include Lion defensive end Larry Hand, number 74. The 250-pound Hand hauled 62 yards, and the Lions were suddenly feeling much better. Their vaunted pass rush reappeared, and they ransacked the Brown backfield. Even when Nelson found time to get his passes away, the revived Lion defense was ready. Number 28, Mike Weegar, took advantage of the sudden shift in momentum. The Lions buried Nelson with 3 interceptions, 2 for touchdowns in the space of 15 minutes. Nelson had suffered enough, and rookie Mike Phipps, number 15, took over what had become a lost cause. But number 20, Lim Barney, sealed Cleveland's fate with a 5th Lion theft of the afternoon. With the defense recuperating so quickly, the Lion offense began responding nicely to the treatment. Number 42, Alty Taylor, swung wide for good yardage, but the real firepower was supplied by a freshly minted Detroit pass battery, Munson to Walton. Veteran Bill Munson, number 19, threw 4 times to young Larry Walton. Walton, number 49, responded by averaging 40 yards per catch. Supplied with plenty of good field position by his defense, Munson had a simple task: put the ball in the air somewhere in the general vicinity of Walton. Walton mastered the Cleveland secondary with 2 leaping touchdown receptions. And in an impressive 41-24 victory, the Lions looked as if they had never felt better. While a decisive victory is excellent medicine, there are no foolproof cures in the NFL. But by game's end, jubilant Joe Schmidt and his Lions were definitely alive and well and looking forward to Minnesota.
The Dallas Cowboys, challengers for dominance in the NFC East, met the contending Vikings in Bloomington, Minnesota. And they quickly got a feeling for some of that Central Division local color, black and blue. The bruising, aggressive, opportunistic Vikings special teams attacked the Cowboys, spiked this punt, and Ed Shirachman pressed the advantage for 6 points. Shirachman, leading the marauding purple, cashed this interception for his 2nd touchdown of the day. Number 70, Jim Marshall, redirected this pass, not originally intended for teammate Alan Page, and Page tanked down deep into Cowboy territory. For the Cowboys, it was just too much Ed Sherachman and too much of the mighty, tough Purple Horde. The Viking defense was relentless, while the offense was consistent and effective. The Cowboys had their moments, but not many like this one late in the fourth period. For the most part, the high-stepping Calvin Hill was throttled. And the Dallas Doomsday defense was shredded as the Cowboys suffered their most embarrassing defeat on record. But for the Purple, possibly a crowning victory.
Well, Pat, the Purple gang looks pretty tough.
And this week, they face another pretty strong bunch, the Los Angeles Rams. Who are you picking, Tom?
I'd like to pick the Rams, but I'm going to go with Minnesota.
I don't mind being stuck with the Rams. It's a pretty good club.
Good ball game. At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happened, and I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall, and we'll see you next week.
This Week in Pro Football has been brought to you by American Motors and your local American Motors dealer. By Hager's Slacks. They just fit better naturally. Promotional consideration is provided by American Motors, makers of the bold new 1971 Javelin with styling so hairy, we even risk turning some people off. Javelin by American Motors. This has been a color feature presentation in cooperation with NFL Films through the facilities of Hughes Sports Network.